You've been involved for a long, long time with this project. What's your vision for recloaking Papatūānuku across Aotearoa?
My vision is a vision of us valuing forests, that people feel really connected to nature through forests, in particular, wetlands as well, and us gaining the benefits from forests that forests can provide. Te bush is in many ways a really good microcosm of what recloaking Papatūānuku is about. We've got a small remnant of tawhai, black beech, so it's an old growth forest remnant which we're looking after. It's obviously protected now, there's no grazing animals, but we've also got natural regeneration. We're just allowing the forest to return of its own accord, and we're also enriching some of those forests by planting into them. So totara and matai, which are two of the podocarps that would have been really dominant here, and kaikatira, of course. We're a country that was historically forested. And we've now lost 2/3 of our forests, say. We've lost 90% of our wetlands.
90% of our wetlands. 2/3 of our forests. That's kind of crazy to think about.
But it's worse than that, because in the lowlands like here, we've lost probably 90% of our forests. These were the richest forests in Aotearoa New Zealand, and we've lost most of them. Bringing them back through restoration, restorative management is great for biodiversity. They're fundamentally important for building resilience and stability into our landscapes. They slow the flow of water out of our catchments. They hold the sediment in the catchments.
What are the expected timeframes as far as getting to an abundant, beautiful ecosystem once more?
When we're talking about nature and native forests, we're talking about the long term. If you try and be fast about it, you're not going to get anywhere. We're sitting in a planting that was done in 2008. So these trees here are 16 years old. They're up 8 metres now, starting to get close canopy. Bird life's definitely coming back, but this won't be representative of what might have been here at some point in the past for maybe 100 years, but it's worth waiting for. Remember, a mature totara might live for 400 years. So our lifespan is just a blink in the eye, in a sense, in terms of those trees.
I'm just sitting there thinking about 400 years of totara fruit.
How many grandchildren down the line is that?
And how many generations of kids that's feeding? You're just making me excited, David.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, and again, I just can't overemphasise this enough. It's not just about the carbon issues, it's not just about the water, it's not just about the biodiversity, it's what you're saying, it's about the people and how people can connect to this. And imagine your grandchildren or my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren, I'm a little bit older than you, coming into here in 50 years' time and actually enjoying a forest.
And thinking about our grandchildren, let's talk about carbon. So what role does native forest play in the carbon sector?
Yeah. Plays two really important roles. So first of all, our existing old growth forests, they're holding huge amounts of carbon in the biosphere. They're stores of carbon. If we look after those, that carbon stays in the biosphere. And we've got to make sure that we control the predators too, because the birds need to move the seeds around to maintain those forests. But then these new forests, like this little planting we're in here now, these are sequestering, drawing carbon down out of the atmosphere, because we know we've got far too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the great thing about these forests is that they're permanent. And they're here for decades and centuries. They're permanent forests.
Because where I come from, up in Tairāwhiti, we're starting to see forests go into permanent pine plantation as carbon forests. They think that pine sequesters carbon really quickly. And then we're hearing also that native forests sequester carbon. And so often for landowners, we are wondering, should we go to pines for the short-term gains, or should we go for native forests with the hope that it delivers carbon sequestration over time? I don't know enough about it. So can you explain that to me?
Yep. There's no two ways about it. Pine trees sequester a lot of carbon over the first 30, 40 years of their life. Then that curve of carbon being sequestered flattens off, and those forests will eventually collapse, because pine forests are early, fast-growing trees. They don't form long-term permanent forests. Our native forests are much slower, so the curve will be a lot lower, coming up more slowly, but it will surpass the pine forest after maybe 60, 80, 100 years, and will continue to grow. And we know that our old-growth podocarp broadleaf forests and our old-growth tawhai beech forests, they store more carbon than a pine plantation can. But it takes 200, 300, 400 years to get to that point. So it depends whether you're thinking about short-term profits and making money out of the climate crisis by investing in pine trees, or if you're thinking about the future and long-term benefits with native forests.
So if we're thinking about short-term carbon credits as an investment for our generation, probably pines is that model.
But who is going to be liable for the problems associated with those plantations in 50, 60 years' time when they start to decay. When those trees start dying and losing their carbon, who's going to be responsible for replacing that carbon? Who's going to pay for that?
Right.
The guys who planted them have got all the credits? Or your grandchildren and my grandchildren?
So if I was thinking about planting a carbon business for my children and my grandchildren, it would seem like a no-brainer to go for that recurring carbon and that long-term carbon through native forests?
Absolutely, it is a no-brainer. You know, you're not going to get rich from it, but you're storing carbon for the future. You're looking after the whenua for the future.
After interviewing other people on this journey, I think that there has to be some form of balance between the financial model and the environmental benefits, right? And so it seems that we do need a tool to be able to incentivize replanting native forests. What are your thoughts and hopes and aspirations in that space?
So in my mind, there's two fundamental problems we're facing at the moment in Aotearoa New Zealand. The first is that pine trees get an unfair incentive through the emissions trading scheme. There's a huge incentive there for people to put it into pine trees, as you described, with no consideration to the future. So ideally, we need to change those policy settings so that the people who earn money from pines also have to be discounted that income to account for future management of those pines, and that doesn't happen. The second thing we need to have a realistic incentive, maybe a carbon plus biodiversity type of credit that recognises all the other values that these native forests provide that pine trees can never provide. And once we've got that tool, native forests are going to win hands down every time.
Strikes me that recloaking papatūānuku is already happening.
Yep. Now that's a really good point. It is happening. It's underway. People are doing it out there. And I think what's really exciting is that we just need to give it a little bit more of a nudge now, which is what we're doing. And part of the story here is telling that story and giving it that nudge. And we're going to get our 2 million hectares and some in the next couple of decades quickly.
Easy work,
Easy work, yeah.
Easy
absolutely.
solutions. And all it takes is putting those trees in the ground, those fencing off of our bush blocks, controlling the ungulates and the browsers,
and connecting with nature, connecting with the whenua, having people out here, whether it's the farmers, whether it's the community groups, whether it's the urban groups coming out and being in these areas and connecting, and then we're going to get it.
Without people, the forests don't thrive, and without the forests, the people don't thrive.